You've lost weight in the past and it felt pretty damn good. You felt like $1 million for your holiday or your wedding, but then all of a sudden, the weight seemed to come back on. This is frustrating. You put in all this time, effort, and sacrifice just to end up back where you started, seemingly effortlessly. And the worst part is losing the weight felt like pushing a boulder up a hill, but putting it back on again seemed like rolling the boulder back down the way you came. And this is a cycle most women are stuck in and they don't know why. You probably look around at people with bodies that you admire and think that you work twice as hard, but despite your work ethic, these people seem to get much better results than you, which just furtherly adds to your frustration. The reason for this is not what you think. It's not that you lack discipline, it's not that you're lazy, it's not that you lack willpower. In fact, it's probably these things that have got you in the situation in the first place. And in this video, I'm going to explain why this is the case, why you keep gaining back the weight after you've lost it, and how to stop this occurring so you can permanently live in a body which gives you freedom. So the reason why you're stuck can quite simply be explained by this lovely little thing right here. I was super excited to buy one of these because now I'll get to play with it all day. Best 15 quid I ever spent. But this is a pendulum. And as we know, the higher that we swing it on this side, the higher it's going to swing on the other. And this is a perfect example of what you're doing in your fat loss journey and exactly why you keep going back to where you started. You see, what we tend to do when it comes to embarking through this process is we do everything at once. You go on a super strict diet, you cut out all the alcohol, you start going to the gym 5-6 days a week, you start doing all this cardio, and it works. And as it works, the pendulum starts to swing up and up and up. And you're like, fantastic, I'm getting results and I'm getting them fast. But the problem is the higher you pull the pendulum, the higher it swings on the other side. Now, what you'll tend to find after seasons of doing all these extreme behaviors is it's followed by a season of the complete opposite. You don't go to the gym for months, you don't care about what you eat, you don't care about how much you're moving, and all the results that you accumulate on this side, you undo through the other side. And this is a problem with being caught in the all or nothing cycle. You're all good when you're doing all the things you should be doing, but when you can't stick to these behaviors and you don't register, it will eventually swing back the other side and you will undo all the progress in which you've been working towards. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why? Why does this happen? Why can't these behaviors just stick? And simply put, it's because your nervous system can't accept them. What you've done on this side is to such a degree of intensity that your nervous system actually starts to interpret it as threat. So all of these positive behaviors on a subconscious level, your body is actually starting to reject because it was too intense. That's why on the opposing end, your body fights back to eventually get to the point where you're back in the middle. Like I said, this is the all or nothing cycle people find themselves in, and this is a form of self-sabotage. It's quite literally where you're sabotaging yourself from getting yourself to where you want to get to. And every single person has a different form of self-sabotage. If you want to find out what your own personal one is, I've left a quiz in the description where you can find out exactly how you self-sabotage yourself. I've also left a little video at the end of that to help you break that cycle you're stuck in. So how are we going to fix this? How are we going to stop the pendulum swinging to such an intense degree to either side? Well, the answer is you don't actually want to swing the pendulum at all, because even if you move it to a certain degree, it's always going to retaliate on the other side. So what I do with the women that I work with is instead of attempting to swing the pendulum, we try and move the middle balance point. And why would we do this? Simply put, because you will always arrive back at your middle set point. I'm going to give you a really practical analogy for this so you can really comprehend what I'm saying. How would you teach a child to swim? Now, you certainly wouldn't throw a child in the deep end of the pool. What that's going to do is cause them to have a fear of water, and it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to swim. But that's exactly what you're doing when you're trying to lose fat. You're throwing yourself in the deep end and then wondering why it's so hard to stick to for the long term. What you would do instead is slowly nurture the child through a process to get them climatized to be able to adopt the ability to swim. You'd walk them into shallow water, and then you might get them to paddle a little bit. You show them the technique and you get them to practice that where they can touch the bottom. Eventually, you would guide them to deeper waters, but you probably do that with assistance. You give them a float of some degree to give them safety to swim in that deep end. You would then take that float away and then they would be able to swim. And this is a perfect example of why we need to do things gradually so your nervous system can begin to accept the behaviors in which we want to become natural. When you're teaching the child to swim, you're not swinging the pendulum, you're simply moving the set point. And this is the exact process that I use with women to help them adopt these behaviors naturally. So instead of your old approach of simply just adding everything all at once, we gradually want to do it step by step. And you might be thinking, fuck, that sounds boring, I don't want to do it. But like most things that you get good at, the process is usually boring. In fact, it should feel easy. The whole point of it feeling easy is that you can accept these behaviors on a subconscious level and therefore they become natural. So what we want to do is every single week gradually add one behavior so small that it almost seems pointless. So week one, that might look like increasing your protein intake ever so slightly, aiming to have 3 meals a day and just focusing on protein. Week two, we might say take a simple walk every single day, aiming to add an extra 3,000 steps. Week three, you want to go to the gym twice a week. Week four, take a 1 litre bottle of water to work with you every single day. You don't even need to drink it, just bring it with you. You're naturally going to drink it as a byproduct. Week five, you're going to replace the evening snack with some fruit. And then week six, you can add an extra gym session to the point where you're now doing 3 a week. These changes on their own, they seem so pointless. But actually, if you zoom out and look at what you've accomplished in 6 weeks, suddenly you're eating more protein on a day-by-day basis, you're moving more, you're going to the gym 3 days a week, and you've stopped the evening snacking, which has been holding you back. And the reason I like this so much is because it integrates a concept called the winning effect. One of my favorite books ever is called Psycho-Cybernetics. It's written by someone called Maxwell Maltz. Now, what he describes in the winning effect is essentially when you get small wins that compound, you start to build momentum. Small wins make you feel like a winner, and then this compounds over time, and the small wins become slightly bigger wins, and then all of a sudden you're winning across the big things. And what this generates is a really positive internal dialogue. It puts your state in a much better place. This is why when you've got momentum on your side, it feels so much easier to succeed. And the problem with what you've been doing in the past is you've set your expectations so high that you never quite meet them. So you always feel like you're behind and losing. One thing that I teach is that state is everything. If you feel like you're winning and you feel like you're on top, what happens? Your self-worth goes up. When your self-worth goes up, your actions naturally go up in alignment with that increased sense of self-worth. And then, like I said, before you know it, you've integrated all of these habits naturally, and you don't even need to think twice about doing them. And that's all fat loss is. It's consistent actions over a long-term basis, which drives sustainable results. One woman in particular that comes to mind when I talk about this approach is a lady named Jess. She couldn't stick to anything. She tried to do diets, go to the gym, try and move more, supplementation. She couldn't combine these habits and make them stick over the long run. What we did over the course of 16 weeks is we just gradually added one small behavior every single week. And these would be so small. One of the weeks, I literally said to her, I want you to get up 10 minutes earlier. And then what I said to her next week was, let's add a healthy breakfast in. Because one thing that she was doing was leaning towards a convenient breakfast, which ultimately wasn't productive for her. And then week by week, we just added a little bit more, really, really small changes. And over 16 weeks, we lost over 15 kilos of body fat. And the best part about that is she hardly felt like she was doing anything. And that's how fat loss should feel. It should feel effortless. It should feel like you're hardly trying. And that's when you know that you've got a process which you're going to stick to. Now, a large part of actually being able to do this process is learning to break the all or nothing cycle. It's a cycle that so many people are stuck in because it's been reinforced in other areas in their life. One thing that I realized with working with so many people is how you do one thing is also how you do everything else. And usually someone that is all or nothing when it comes to the gym and fat loss is also all or nothing when it comes to their work, their relationships, and they eventually get burnout in different areas of their life. What we have to do to kickstart this process is rewrite the belief that you need to be 100% to make progress, because that's just a lie. You don't need to be 100% consistent all the time to make progress. In fact, you probably just need to be 70%, 80%, and you're going to get pretty far. This is why a lot of the work that I do directly with the women that I work with is focus on the psychology. We have to break those limited beliefs, rewrite them to be in alignment with the higher version of themselves, which has the body in which they're looking for. I have got some other videos breaking down how to do this. It's quite a complex process, but if you do want some further assistance to break this cycle and allow yourself to step into this higher version of yourself, you can apply to work with me directly through the link in my description. You can only go as far as what your beliefs will take you, and that's why I focus so heavily on those. So if you do feel like this is a massive limitation for you, I heavily advise you apply to work with me and see what we can do for you. But you can do this by yourself, and hopefully today, by me outlining it in a very simple way, you can see how this old approach isn't serving you, and you can start to integrate a new one. If you have got any questions about anything I mentioned in this video, feel free to leave them in the comments, or you can personally reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.